Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's having a fantastic Monday so far. In this particular episode, we're going to start working on the turbo kit finally. I think the first plan of attack is going to be doing the crossover pipe. I think I'd even mentioned it in the last video. I got a bunch of stuff on order that should be here in the next day or two. The downpipe material, the split, all that good stuff. So right now, I already have a couple of pieces cut and I'm well on my way to getting the driver's side set up. So let's get started on that. Okay, so we got this first side of the driver's side done. We're going to put some witness marks on it. I think you can see it from where the camera sits, but this part of the crossover is sticking up above the turbine flange, so we're going to cut it down a little bit. We're going to go ahead and mark it. We want it to, by the time we cut it, we want it to be about halfway up through the turbine flange so we could weld it down inside of there pretty easily. So we'll get that off of the car real quick and cut it first. Alright, let's see what we got here. In the famous words of Jim Carrey, like a glove. Alright, let's get that tacked in place after we put it back in the car. That's always the fun part, trying to find a way to get to that stuff to tack it. Everything's okay over here. As long as it's pretty solid, we can take it off the car and start fitting it for the other side. Alright, so it's the next day back out in the garage. Yesterday, I think I might have mentioned it in the previous footage of this video, but I had placed an order with Summit late last night. Here it is the next day, not even 24 hours later, and the parts have already arrived on my doorstep. So check it out. I'm gonna grab the camera and show you this giant box of turbo goodness. Now, I know that doesn't look like a whole lot, but that is the complete downpipe in one box. You'll see over there on the right side, 4 V-band clamps. Actually 3 of them. One of them's on the bench, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. The 5-inch piece, and then the rest of that is 3.5-inch stuff. Okay, so the plan for the downpipe, and I've done this a million times, but I'll go ahead and explain it here because I don't think there's any footage of it. The downpipe will point down, and it goes into a Y, and then that's a 3.5-inch Y. So a 5-inch into 2 3.5s, and then from there it goes around the engine and comes out by the bell housing. Now it's going to have 4 V-bands on it, so I decided to take one for the team, and I bought the Summit brand V-band clamps. So I'm just going to I want to show you real quick what they look like, because a lot of people look for this kind of stuff and they want to try out the cheaper stuff. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, and you can make a judgment on your own. So here's the V-band ring. Looks pretty standard issue. For some reason unknown to any being that lives on this planet, they decided to what looks like chrome plate these V-band rings. Not exactly sure why. Probably won't hurt a thing. They're just going to get welded and it doesn't matter. So the one thing that I don't like about them is they don't have centering rings, so when they put them together they don't lock in place. I kind of figured that was the case when I bought them, and the way I'm using them it really doesn't matter, so I'm okay with that. Now, the one thing I do like about this clamp assembly, it looks like a standard issue 5-star clamp, and for anybody that uses this stuff, you're familiar with what I just said. So the clamp itself, stainless steel, the hardware looks good. The one thing I did like about this particular size of V-band has the big 8mm screw and probably a 12 or a 13mm nut on there. So clamp itself, kick ass. Rings, not so much. For this project, they're going to work fine. Now, back to business. Let's get started on the second half of the crossover pipe. Okay, so we're getting ready to start fitting the passenger side of the crossover pipe to what's left, or the beginning of the driver's side of the crossover pipe. I really don't know how to explain how to do this other than cut a little bit, a whole bunch of times, measure, 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 cut a little bit more, and repeat the process over the course of, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, about 70 times, just guessing. But, as you can see, I've already drew some squiggly lines on here and some rough measurements. I'm going to take one big cut. Hopefully it's not too much. I do have a little bit of room to move this up and down to make up for mistakes and whatnot, and I will probably need it. So, may the force be with me. Now what I did there is I just cut this gap out. That allows me to get the pipe closer to the other one because I want to start tucking this edge inside this hole. And I'm going to start working the pipe in this way, like so, until eventually it's cut so far up here that it fits down in place like it's supposed to. Now I'm going to repeat that process a whole bunch of times and probably not record very much of it. So let me get a little bit closer and then I'm going to pick the camera back up again and show you how it's coming along. Okay, so a couple hours into this, and this is what you end up with right here. Now, there's really no good way to explain how to do this other than take your time, measure, 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 and lots of practice. You're undoubtedly going to screw these up a couple times trying to learn how to do this, but I'll show you a few things that I do along the way. As you fit this tube, you start out with a full tube that's been and you just lean it up against the other tube like so, and you make the cut like I showed you a minute ago. There's just a small section out of this tube right here. Now, as you start getting it closer and closer, you can see the marks that I put on the flange right here. As it gets closer and closer, the marks go further and further in. And as the marks go further and further in, you just observe what you need to cut on the other side of the pipe over here. It probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now, and like I said, it's just something that takes a whole lot of practice. And I'm sure there's probably a way to lay this out and do it in one cut, but I don't know that way. So you do the trial and error method just like I showed you here. Now I'm going to grab the camera and show you how good of a fit it is if you just take your time. As you can see right through there, one 040 welding rod will not fit through that gap, and ultimately that's what you're looking for. So as I showed you in that close-up, one little welding rod will not fit through this gap, and ultimately that's what you want. You want the gap to be as close to perfect as you can so the weld will look perfect. The other thing is that if you use a lot of filler, to join big gaps, you get a couple of potential problems. One is that that's most likely where it will crack at. Number two is if you're MIG welding it, which there's nothing wrong with that, and that's all you have, you're going to get wire poking through there and things like that. What happens there is you get some of those pieces of wire and trash and things break loose and run through the turbo when you don't want it to. And of course that'll tear it up. And in this case, that's a $5,500 turbo that you don't want to pass anything but exhaust gas through. So there it is. How to make a merge with a lot of grinding. And just for the records, I didn't film most of that grinding because that is about 2.5 hours worth of fitting to make it look good like that. So just keep those things in mind. Lots of marks, lots of grinding, lots of test fitting, and so on and so forth. So let's get this piece cut out, because as you can see, it's already got the mark on it. We'll get the piece cut out. Now when I cut this piece out, I'm going to stay to the inside of the line by about a 1/16 of an inch. Now when you put that line on there, keep in mind that that line is outside of this tube, okay? And there is no reason at all that you should ever touch the line when you're cutting that part out, because you're outside of the tube. So if you're cutting it, why would you touch it? The other thing that does is when you go to weld this thing up and that weld burns through in some places, that 1/16 of an inch will actually melt back some and keep that the concentration of heat from the weld from burning through it. Okay, so some things have changed since the beginning footage of this video. This week has just been an awesome week. I have screwed everything up that could possibly be screwed up. So the nice looking merge that I showed you earlier, that is one of the things that I screwed up. So I actually had to redo it, and obviously I didn't film that part again, but I actually changed the pipe that goes up to the passenger side to better suit the split down pipe and where the wastegate was going to be and all that good stuff. So this is what I ended up with right here. Okay, so you'll remember, or you'll probably recall a few minutes ago in the video, this pipe was actually longer and down out here somewhere. This is actually going to facilitate getting that 3.5 inch down pipe down through here on this side and the wastegate placement. So I'm going to go ahead and weld that up, and we'll dress the inside of it up, and then I'll show you what it looks like as soon as I get done with it. Okay, got the merge all taken care of, welded back together, cleaned up on the inside, turned out pretty good. So there's one thing fixed for this week that I got screwed up. Come on, focus, focus, focus. So it didn't turn out too bad. Inside of it looks pretty stinking nice. Turn it around so you can get a good look at it. So there it is. Now we're going to test fit it on the car. And start on the remainder of the crossover pipe. Okay, now we're on to the crossover pipe. As you see, I already tack welded this piece on there. At some point, there's going to be another 2.5 inch V-band right here, so this leg of it will come out by itself, and you don't have to fight the thing to get it in and out when it's one big piece. But I don't have that V-band right now. So, we're going to weld the braces up on both sides of the flange, put it back in the car, finish the other side, and we'll be done. All right, that turned out really nice. Get a shot of both sides there. Oh, hit the camera. Okay. There it is, all welded up. Now it is complete, so we're ready to put that back on the car. All right, everybody, we got a lot done in this video. The bulk of the crossover pipe done, which is, in my case, the hardest part of the turbo kit. I am super excited, getting so close to having a running race car again, and it's going to be awesome. I cannot wait for that. So, next video coming up is going to be the rest of the crossover pipe, the down pipe, the split of the down pipe, and whatever else we can fit in there. So, thanks again for stopping by. I appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great week and that it's off to a good start on Monday. And we will see you guys in the next video.